Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, September 25th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. The first football Saturday of the Big Ten season is now 29 days away, and the game against Michigan kicks off in 78 days. We may just make that a regular part of the countdown, regular feature on this show. Do that little countdown at the start of every show. You can let me know if you like that or not. I think it's exciting because, hey, those numbers keep getting smaller. And while the games that we're talking about are now looking like they'll be played, the NCAA mandated dead period recruiting has been extended through the end of the year. So those recruiting visits are not going to happen. And that is forcing programs to get creative. Buckeye Scoop recruiting analyst Mick Walker is my guest this morning. He just wrote about how Ohio State recruits are working to try to make some kind of a on-campus or on-campus-ish event work within those NCAA rules this fall. And Mick, what would something like that look like?
Yeah, obviously the moment that everybody started to recognize that this is a possibility is when Oklahoma's commits started doing the Sooner Summit, and then I think a lot of different universities their commits started putting something together. But all signs point to Ohio State commits, and especially specifically in the 2021 class, having a Buckeye Bash as they call it. And as far as they're keeping it very hush hush when it comes to what's going on, who's all would be there. But the idea would be more about not getting on Ohio State's campus, not going to see the shoe, not going to see all those different things. Because all these guys that we're talking about as potential Big Ten targets, and Emeka Ibuka, Tristan Lay, Rayshawn Davis, they've all been on Ohio State's campus before. They've done the campus tours. They've seen all that. It's more about relationships. And obviously, like, that's why Tristan Lay went down to LSU twice. He wants to get those relationships with those commits. And that's why the hopes and dreams seem to be wanting to do something at a local commit, specifically a house, Jack Sawyer's house, that I think is what the overall idea is, and have those guys there. Just have all the guys up. Like Travion Henderson also has not visited Ohio State. Just to get him in Columbus to see the environment and be with those guys is something that I think they're trying to do. And if they can get guys like Emeka Ibuka, if they can get Tristan Lay on campus again, that's great. But I think more so than anything, this is just getting a lot of these guys on campus that are already committed because they just want to see each other and get to know each other more in person. That's really because typically you have a Buckeye Bash hosted by Ohio State and a recruiting event, a Friday Night Lights, something like that, where these guys could come together, shake hands, talk about everything. But we haven't even had that, and I think that's really what they're trying to do with the Buckeye Bash. And if they can get these uncommitted guys, these top targets on in Columbus as well, then so be it. That's something they'd love to do as well.
Yeah, I mean these are the guys that are going to be spending the next 3, 4, 5 years together with. So it is important. I mean, I think you showed up for college your freshman year and you didn't necessarily know your roommate, and it was you might have talked once or twice on the phone or whatever before that. But yeah, these guys are going to be playing together, living together, working together, traveling together. So yeah, having that relationship built is important. And I mean, relationships are an important part of that recruiting process all throughout. Relationships between the coaches who are recruiting the players and the player, relationships between other guys, just in the class and in the position groups and the position rooms. How big would that be just to get the current Ohio State commits together, get a couple of those kind of top remaining targets? There aren't that many spots available, so they don't need to bring in a huge recruiting weekend where they bring in hundreds of players. If it's just kind of that smaller kind of a couple dozen kind of guys kind of group, how big could that be? Coaches obviously can't be there with the NCAA rules, but how big would that be just to have the players together and maybe start building that bond and building those friendships that could end up playing out over the next 3, 4, 5 years?
It'd be absolutely huge because I mean, obviously, this time last year, guys like Jack Sawyer, Ben Christman, Jaden Ballard were all committed to Ohio State, and they came down to Ohio State every time they had a home game, so they got to meet a lot of these guys that were visiting in person. But like we talked about in the prior discussion, guys like Travion Henderson, Denzel Burke, got these specific. Andre Turrentine's been here, but obviously that was in a small vacuum of time. Jordan Hancock's another guy that I imagine he's been to Ohio State. He loves Ohio State, but he'd also, I imagine, love to get up here and just see what Ohio State's like again after decommitting from Clemson. Just getting there and getting that bond together. And I mean, it's something we'll probably talk about as the winter approaches. But a lot of these guys are going to be early enrollees, so getting a chance to just see each other, build that confident relationship to the next step, to an in-person level before they enroll and actually get on campus together, start rooming with each other would be huge. Because like we talked, like if they do get Travion Henderson on, then this would be his first time seeing Ohio State. But if not, he's going to roll up in January early enrolling without ever having been on campus before. Just get it and without having meet these guys, and that's something that I think he really wants to do, and that's probably why he's been working behind the scenes to help drive this and hopefully get this event going.
Well, you have a new weekly column called Mick at Night for our members. There was a lot of insight. You just released the first one. There's a lot of insight in there into some of the players that you're scouting and talking to right now. Let's start with something that you had in this week's column. Some of the top 2022 players in the state for the Buckeyes. Who are a few names that people should know in the state?
Yeah, the big names, it seems like Ohio State has done a very great job with this under Coach Day, and that's going out, getting the top guy in Ohio early, securing him. And depending where you look, that's CJ Hicks, Gabe Powers. They can be interchangeable. They're both outside linebackers that can do a lot of different things. They have that guy locked in. You have a top corner in Jair Brown locked in already. You have a top offensive tackle in Tager Chabola locked in. I mean, that's 4 solid commits. They have 5 offers out in Ohio. The 5th one goes to Blake Miller. He's another guy that I think Bill Green saw a few weeks ago. And it's just hard to see another program passing Ohio State in this race. I think that's another matter of him wanting to just see campuses again, not even specifically Ohio State, but places like Clemson, LSU, just wanting to be a recruit for a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. You see a lot of guys wanting to do that, and that's why there's a small movement starting right now to get the dead period lifted. But outside of those 5, that I think Ohio State currently has, I believe, they have over 5 commits from Ohio in 2021, if not more than that, and I think the 2022 class will be no different because, like we said, they have 4 in, 5 likely, and then you get down to it, and Emil Wagner from Wayne is another guy that is one of the top players in Ohio. As Tager is a very talented offensive lineman, but Tager could be an offensive tackle or an offensive guard. Emil Wagner is a left tackle all the way. He can play left tackle at Ohio State. He could possibly play left tackle in the NFL. He's that talented and has that much upside. I think he's a guy that we'll see Ohio State give. They're talking to him. They're communicating with him heavily. A few different Ohio State coaches reached out during the September 1st period to talk to him in person. But as more junior film gets out on him, and since he's so new to playing the offensive tackle position, he split time between left tackle and defensive end last year. Now he's focusing solely on left tackle. And I think that's what Ohio State wants to see, is just more film, get to know they're getting more. And this offer to Emil Wagner should be out probably before the end of the year. And I don't know how quickly he'll commit, but as soon as it comes, you got to think he's a Buckeye as well. I saw him in a game against Springfield, and Springfield on the flip side has a safety that I might be higher on the most. I saw him twice in game last year, once this year, and once at a camp this summer in July. His name's Delion Bradley. He's a true free safety. I liken him to the guys of Jordan Fuller, Damon Webb, that are guys that aren't going to come in. I mean, a lot of fans during their time at Ohio State probably won't talk about him a ton, but they're going to be stalwarts back there at the free safety spot. Nobody's going to get behind them. They'll make every tackle in front of them. They'll be contributors on special teams, 3 or 4 year players, and they'll just be impact players for the time at Ohio State. That's why I'm so high on a guy like Delion Bradley. He's a true free safety that can do a lot of things. It's a very smart kid that's going to do everything to help his team win. And you see that at Springfield. He was one of the best leaders on the team last year. Clearly one of the best leaders on their team this year. And I know he's a kid that the Ohio State staff loves. And you can talk to a few different people about it. Just to get an Ohio State offer as an Ohio kid is a little more difficult, and I think that's why you don't see one for Emil Wagner or Delion Bradley. But I believe both are coming. The next spot would be tight end, which is Ohio State they wanted 2 in 2020. They never got it. They wanted 2 in 2021. It doesn't look like they'll get that. That leaves currently already have 1 in 2022, which is sort of follows their track. They're going to get one guy early and then chase some other handful of guys. One guy that they started chasing was Benjamin Goss now out of North Carolina. And I looked at a time that he might be committing early, but I talked to him a few weeks back, and he's slowed his process down significantly. He went from more of a final 3 to just the top 3. And then of North Carolina, Florida, Ohio State. Clemson's also getting in that mix. And if Clemson does offer, he has got a brother at North Carolina. And obviously he's from North Carolina. The Clemson's in South Carolina. I just have a hard time seeing him leave North Carolina and instead leaving North Carolina to go to Columbus instead of going to Clemson, South Carolina. It just seems like a Tar Heel or a Tiger at this point. That leaves the tight end spot to go to 2 Ohioans that have very prestigious recruitments already. And Elijah Brown from Wayne is another kid that I saw earlier this year. He's a very big-bodied kid with good hands and good quickness. He already holds an Alabama offer from USC. He's a very talented kid. It's continuing to improve and show what the offers are and show what he can bring to a game. He's a very talented receiver, and he's shown that off this year. Outside of that, Ryan Miller's another kid at Kinston. I saw him about a week ago from the time we're recording this, and he's He's a little bit longer, a little bit lean than Elijah Brown, but he's a more gifted wide receiver. That's when you talk to, if you talk to different college sources, they view Elijah as the better blocker, Ryan as a better receiver. And it's just a matter of opinion between those two guys. And both of them are uber talented, and Ohio State is looking at them, monitoring them weekly. I just have a hard time with two talented tight ends like that. It's hard to see one of them not ending up on Ohio State. My personal opinion is that it would be Ryan Miller, but this is likely one where we see, like we saw with Joe Royer and Luke Lachey, the two will come down to campus and one will likely leave with an offer. And at that point, it's hard to tell, and who knows what will happen. But that leads me to believe that one of those two will end up at Ohio State eventually.
Well, you've mentioned a number of guys that you've already seen in person this fall, and I think you have probably gotten to see more high school football than anyone else on staff, just because it has worked out that you've been able to get into some games that some of the rest of us were not able to get into games those weeks. So, let people know some of the guys who you've seen this fall who might be people who end up as Power 5 players, at least, if not Ohio State players within the state of Ohio, who might be names that people don't necessarily know yet.
Yeah, it all started probably right as soon as Ohio announced that they could be having a high school football season. They allowed for a weekend where you could fit scrimmages in, and right as soon as that happened, we got word of some scrimmages. I was actually able to get out to Dublin Coughlin versus Pickerington Central, which in all honesty could be a preview of a very Final Four, maybe state championship game down the line. Both teams are super talented. So with that, I got to see the glimpse of Sonny Styles before really anybody got to see him in his preview on ESPN. He was a super talented kid then, and I think everybody got to see why people at Pickerington Central were raving about him last year when he was injured. And that's another guy that it's just hard to see not being a Buckeye, and likely hard to see not being a 5-star talent at the end of this. Outside of that, I got the one kid that I love to see that's not going to end up Ohio State was LSU running back commit Corey Connor, who's in the 2021 class. Freakish athlete that puts up amazing numbers down on Roger Bacon, and LSU got a very talented recruit. Ohio State is another kid that Ohio State liked. The numbers didn't fit, and they had two other running backs that they wanted to take before him. Corey found a great spot at LSU, and I'm happy to see him there. I also got to see a little bit of the second half where I saw LaSalle and I saw Jabron Payne and Jalen Johnson. Both of them are absolute studs. Jabron Payne looks different than when Bill, Mark, and I were able to see him in July. He looks more filled out. He looks like he has a touch better speed. He's looking more like a running back instead of a slot receiver, and that's awesome to see. Last week I also got to see. Last week I was able to see Fairfield at Lakota West at Fairfield, and at that time I was able to see one guy in the 2024 class, which I know is a crazy ways away, but a lefty quarterback named Talon Fisher out of Fairfield is somebody that is leading his team in rushing yards down there in the GMC, but also he's got a very crisp, tight release as a lefty that will be able to do some that I think right now he's my top 24 prospect, which is hard to say, even though because we haven't seen that many guys play varsity, but early on, playing in one of the best conferences in Ohio, putting up the numbers that he has. Talon Fisher's a name that I think people will get to know more and more as we progress down the line at Ohio, in Ohio. Other than that, I got two great games. I'm going to be out at Canal Winchester with Westerville South tomorrow night to see Stephen Bird from Canal Winchester, running back that has a ton of offers. Heard from a ton of different schools September 1st, including Ohio State. Caden Saunders leads Westerville South. He's committed to Penn State, but Ohio State has been in contact with him. And I mentioned that Mick at night. I think he's somebody that if Ohio State does start looking to expand on their wide receiver offers in 2022, he could be somebody that gets an offer. I'll see some Columbus City League action between Marion Franklin and Independence High School. Both have a star Division I prospect, surefire, and Independence is Sean Mummerlin, who's committed to Rutgers play tight end, and Giovanni Scales from Marion Franklin has a ton of different Power 5 Division I offers, and he's a talented safety linebacker. Outside of that, I've got a few more. I will see Pickerington Central. I knew you saw Tom in week 2, I believe. I'll see them again next week. Host Matt Reynoldsburg, who has a talented 2022 quarterback, and DeJohn Jennings, and then I'll finish up. But St. Francis de Sales going to Bishop Hartley, who again have more talented prospects. De Sales is led by recent Ohio commit Quintel Quinn, and then in 2022, Bishop Hartley has two guys that I like in Richard Kinney and Daniel Tucson, a defensive tackle, and then Kinney is an athlete with legitimate 4.4 speed that I think a lot of colleges would have loved to have seen this past summer in camp setting. But after that, this is the second to last week of high school regular season high school football, and then we have 7 weeks of playoffs. But I mean, we've got a little over maybe a month and a half left. So it's crazy to see that we've already over halfway through. We've seen a ton of different prospects thanks to you and Tony getting out on the road. Bill's been out on the road. Mark's been killing it on the road. It's going to be crazy. And then hopefully we can, once the season passes, we get some basketball games in, and hopefully we can also get the All-Star games at the end of the season. It's a big hope for mine.
Yeah, well, this has definitely been a year where you didn't quite know what you were going to get, but we have been grateful to get as much as we've gotten so far in terms of getting out to go see games, see all sorts of players, and yeah, you have seen, it seems like, probably about half of Ohio already, and there's still 7 weeks of playoffs and a couple weeks of regular season left. So Mick, thank you for joining us. His column Mick at Night is just one of the great insider features you can find every week at Buckeye Scoop. Alex Gleitman has ADEC, Mark Givler has Buckeye Scoop, Bill Green has his bank blog, plus his weekly chat. Ross Fulton should be getting ready to do another Chalk Talk chat fairly soon to answer your X's and O's questions. And then there's all sorts of great free content on the site as well. If you haven't signed up yet, make this the week you do it. We'll be talking to Ohio State offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson and some of the tight ends this afternoon. We'll have plenty of coverage of that. And the season's getting close, and it's looking like it could be a pretty memorable one for the Buckeyes. So if you are not able to get inside the tickets to get inside the horseshoe with tickets this year, and it's starting to look like that might be the case, you might want to think about taking some of the money you save on tickets and signing up for Buckeye Scoop. You'll get access to our incredible team of insiders, coverage of this year's team, as well as recruiting and more, all at buckeyescoop.com. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you Monday.